Hey everybody, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Awesome 5. My name's Jade, and today we're speaking to Nicola Owen from Auckland Disability Law.
I'm Nicola Owen, I'm the Development Manager for Auckland Disability Law. We've been going for about 3.5 years now, and my role really is to keep the lawyers churning out the legal work and to really try and engage community in kind of having a say in the sort of policies and laws that affect disabled people.
Can you explain it in real terms for people on the ground that may not know what you do?
Sure. So disability law is a free community legal service in the Auckland region, and it's specifically set up to kind of meet the unmet legal needs of disabled people. So it's really when disabled people are having problems finding a lawyer or paying for a lawyer or understanding, a legal problem, they can give us a call or arrange to come and visit us, and we'll try and help them through it. Like I say, it's a free service. We don't do much taking things to court, but what we can do is try and hook people up with a lawyer. But a lot of what we do is just helping people to kind of deal with their own legal issues. So maybe that's helping them get a decision reviewed by Work and Income or by Housing New Zealand, or helping them deal with like a debt problem or problems with their bank, their landlord, a whole range of things. A lot of employment law, so a lot of people who want to know, what their rights are as somebody at work, whether it's they don't think they're getting paid the minimum wage properly, or they're not getting their holidays, or they think their employer is discriminating against them. And we do a whole load of things as well, like people maybe having problems getting access to transport, or access to maybe buildings in the city centre or something like that. Then we can kind of help them to write to the right people and hopefully get it sorted. So,
okay. Why the need for a specific service?
We were set up, there was really a call both from disabled people but also from the existing community law centres, and they kind of recognised that a lot of their services weren't that accessible, and part of that's the usual kind of physical access or the information not being in accessible formats, but also kind of understanding what kind of legal issues disabled people have and how disability might be a factor in that. And so we work quite closely with the other community law centres and with other lawyers. If it's something straightforward, then we'll either send it to another community law centre and help to refer that person on. But if it's something with a real disability focus, then we'll take it on, because it is quite specialist. It can be quite complicated to understand how disability becomes a factor in that. Employment's another really good example of that. Something that might seem like a really straightforward kind of performance management issue. Then you kind of scratch the surface and go, all right, so this person told you they were a disabled person, they told you that they have fatigue issues, and yet you're still trying to keep pushing them. This is maybe a human rights issue rather than just a straightforward employment issue, and that's where the disability angle becomes really important. So, ideally all the mainstream services would be totally accessible and understand all of that complexity, but in reality that's not the case. So we work together to try and make them more accessible and understand more about disability, but there's also still a need for a specialist service that kind of gets that.
So would you say that discrimination is quite a common theme on various levels, and that's why you need to step in? I think if we think about the two different kinds of discrimination, then, there is a certain amount of sort of direct discrimination, but I think more often it's that kind of indirect discrimination. So, just a society that's not set up to kind of expect disabled people, or that doesn't value disabled people. So, things are just generally inaccessible. You go to a new workplace and the computer system isn't compatible if you're not using a mouse, or if you need to use a screen reading software, or the bus isn't accessible, and we never thought that somebody blind would show up, so we didn't bother to do X, Y, and Z. So it's really about people not being expected and not seeing disabled people as part of community. But then it means that when you show up at things, they're not accessible for you, so you're kind of indirectly discriminated against in that way. And there's still a lot of attitudinal barriers around that as well. So, and a lot of it's just, I don't think it's necessarily done with malice, but there is certainly still a lot of discrimination out there. Can you tell us about some of the specific legal advice that you can offer people with disabilities? Yeah, I mean, quite a lot of the questions we get in are things like what's known as the Triple PR Act, so the protection of personal and property rights. So that's to do with enduring power of attorney, welfare guardian, those kind of issues. They come up quite a lot. And that's certainly quite a big issue with families, you know, trying to work out how they support, you know, disabled family members, and effectively who gets, you know, who has decision-making authority when somebody maybe finds it difficult to make decisions for themselves. So we certainly give out quite a lot of information about that, and sometimes advice, particularly to the disabled person in that scenario, and then help people to try and find lawyers if they need to set up things like welfare guardian or enduring power of attorney. Often it's the case that, you know, maybe a family thinks they need to do those, but it's not actually essential, and maybe they can look at things like just being an agent with working income or assisting a family member, you know, to go to the bank and stuff. And so sometimes it's about, you know, sort of getting a family together and talking through what are the options. And so we don't do the kind of legal paperwork on that. We would refer that to another lawyer because it goes to the family court, but we can certainly help people to work through the options. And similarly with things like setting up trusts, we've this week had a couple of inquiries about people trying to set up trusts, whether that be to deal with ACC payments coming in, or, you know, people wanting to make sure that, you know, maybe the family home's protected, you know, to pass on to their family. And again, we don't set up trusts, but we can point people in the right direction. You know, can give them an idea how much a lawyer might charge, the kind of questions to ask a lawyer before they go about setting it up, and give them some initial information so they can start thinking about what it is that they want to do. A big part of, before we were set up, there was some research done for the Legal Services Agency, and a big part of sort of, I suppose, disabled people and their families saying why they wanted a service was just not knowing whether they needed a lawyer or not. So to be able to ring up and say, hi, I don't know if I've got a legal question, and not kind of feel stupid, or not worry that we're going to charge them, like, you know, $100 an hour or something for asking it. Yeah. And so a big part of our work is just that, kind of reassuring people, no, you don't have a legal problem, but you can go here to this service provider, or yes, you do have a legal problem, and either we can help you or you can go to a lawyer.
Nice. Lastly from me, how do people get in touch with you in Auckland Disability Law?
The easiest way is either to ring us, so we've got a landline or a mobile number. People can text us as well. We've got...
Can you give us those?
Yeah. So the landline is 09 257 5140. The mobile is 027 457 5140. The generic email address is info@adl.org.nz, or if people go onto our website, which is aucklanddisabilitylaw.org.nz, then there's a form they can fill in that just flicks straight over to our email if they want to just ask a question or get us to get back in touch with them. We've got a Facebook page as well that we kind of update sporadically, so we try and get the latest news up. So for example, like when there was a new disability commissioner, you know, we remembered to put the link up so people knew about it, but you know, but people can contact us that way as well. Sure. So
thank you so much for coming in today, Nicola. Thank you. That's all we got time for today's episode of Awesome 5, but remember to check back next week for another episode of Your Youth and Disability magazine. That's all from me. Stay awesome, New Zealand.